Welcome in, everybody. Ready to dive deep today.
Yeah.
We're taking a look at the one and only Warren Buffett, using his biography as, well, our roadmap.
Always a fascinating journey to unpack.
Totally. And we're not just hitting those basic bullet points, like born on this date, made this deal, that kind of thing.
Right.
We're after those intriguing bits, those choices, even quirks that make Buffett tick, both in the investment world and just as a person.
Absolutely. Biographies are gold for that. That's
Yeah.
where you understand what shaped someone's whole view of things, led to the decisions they made, what's in that for us to learn, from Buffett's journey. That's the core of this.
Okay, so let's hit rewind, way back to his childhood. There's this thing about a stopwatch.
Yeah.
He was obsessed with it.
Well,
Not just any stopwatch, though. He'd time marble races in the bathtub with it, like super serious.
I love that. Sounds like simple kid stuff, but it hints at something deeper in how Buffett's mind works. Even in play, he's got to have data, got to measure. It's like his brain's wired for that.
Right. Like Wall Street training before he even knows what stocks are.
Exactly. And that need to track performance, to quantify everything,
Yeah.
becomes key to his whole investing philosophy later on.
It's crazy. Like he was practicing for the big leagues without even knowing it. Speaking of competition, though, his sister, Doris, was also into investing, which, sibling rivalry, right,
Huh.
can be a huge motivator.
No kidding.
And for young Warren, it seems like that really, really lit a fire under him. At only 11, he buys his first stock specifically to try and, outperform Doris.
Oh, wow. I mean, that kind of thing, seemingly minor, but could have been the seed for his whole long-term approach to investing.
Yeah.
Early lesson in market volatility, too, especially because the stock initially tanked. Patience is key.
Talk about learning market cycles before most kids even grasp, fractions.
Uh-huh.
As
Yeah.
Buffett gets older, though, his hunger to learn takes him to some interesting places. Ever heard of elephant bumping?
Oh, yeah. That term, coined by Tom Murphy, one of Buffett's friends, it describes those super exclusive gatherings, all the elite, those who really run things in business.
Yeah. Easy to imagine those events as pure social climbing.
Right, totally. But Buffett had a different agenda.
Not there to schmooze or impress people, huh?
Exactly. He saw those gatherings as like pure information gold mines, strategic networking, soaking up insights into all sorts of industries, learning how these powerful minds think.
So he was after knowledge, not connections.
Information was his real currency. He understood that access to those circles, it wasn't about status. It was about getting ahead of the game, knowing what's coming before anyone else does.
Like a knowledge ninja.
Ha, exactly.
Sneaking into these high-powered events just to soak it all up. Fascinating look into how strategic he already is. All this learning, all this observing, it eventually leads him into serious investing. But even Warren Buffett had a mentor, someone who shaped those early years, right? That's where Benjamin Graham comes in.
Oh, absolutely. Benjamin Graham, his professor at Columbia University, huge influence on Buffett's early career. Graham's principles of value investing became the bedrock of Buffett's approach. But, and this is crucial, Buffett didn't just blindly follow those teachings, He evolved, built on them, showing that even the best mentors can only take you so far.
Gotta forge your own path eventually.
Take those basics and make them your own, that's huge. Now, here's something I found surprising. Apparently, Buffett wasn't always this, smooth, charismatic figure we see today. Younger years, described as kind of socially awkward. He even signed up for a Dale Carnegie course, then backed out.
Really? Wow. It challenges the whole idea that you got to be a natural people person to make it big, especially in something like investing, where relationships are everything.
So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's about understanding, connecting with people, too.
Absolutely. Buffett may not have been a natural at it, but he learned to build trust, cultivate those long-term relationships. Vital skills, whether you're negotiating deals or running whole businesses. Shows his adaptability.
Yeah.
Willingness to work on those weaknesses. And speaking of relationships, we can't talk about Warren Buffett without talking about his wife, Susie Thompson. She seems like such a complex figure, someone who played a big role in shaping his personal life and his philanthropy.
Oh, Susie's influence. It's often underestimated, but it was huge, truly profound. She was his anchor, his confidant, and a huge force behind all his charitable giving, their relationship. Unconventional, for sure. But it's clear Susie challenged his assumptions, pushed him beyond his comfort zone, made his worldview more human, I guess you could say.
Like she brought this whole other perspective to his life, which is so valuable for growth.
Exactly. It really does. A real reminder that there's a lot more to him than just the numbers. But going back to Berkshire Hathaway for a sec, it's wild to think that this sprawling empire of his, it didn't start out that way at all. It was actually a struggling textile company initially.
Huh. So from a single investment to the cornerstone of his whole empire. Quite a journey.
You got it. And it wasn't exactly smooth sailing the whole way either. At first, Buffett buys into Berkshire Hathaway as like a classic value play, but he ends up in this power struggle with the company's management.
So it wasn't just buying stock, it was like wrestling for control.
Exactly. Buffett, he gradually ups his stake in Berkshire Hathaway until, boom, he's got control. But it was a fight. He had to outmaneuver some seriously resistant folks, people who just didn't see the company the way he did.
That's intense. Must have taken some, let's be honest, a little ruthlessness along the way to pull that off. But this struggle, this fight, it ultimately creates the foundation of everything.
It did. It really did. It shows his patience, his strategic thinking, but also that sheer determination to get it done, to make his vision a reality. Now, let's shift gears a bit. The 1960s, right? Huge social and political upheaval. I'm curious how all that impacted Buffett, shaped his worldview.
Yeah, good point. While he's building this fortune, the world's changing rapidly around him. Civil rights movement, Vietnam War, these are events that touch everyone. How does someone who comes from a pretty traditional conservative background respond to that kind of world in flux?
Well, it seems like encountering those diverse viewpoints, engaging with people from all walks of life, it really opened him up, made him see things through a different lens.
So we're seeing an evolution in his thinking, maybe a broadening of his horizons. And could that tie into his growing interest in philanthropy, especially causes around social justice and equality?
You're spot on, connecting those dots. It's as though he realized that wealth comes with responsibility, a responsibility to give back, to use your influence to make a real positive impact. And that sense of responsibility, it just grows stronger as he moves through different phases of his life, both personally and professionally.
Because right in the middle of all this, his personal life is changing too. He becomes a husband, a father, and like we talked about earlier, his relationship with Susie, well, it was anything but traditional.
Right. Their whole arrangement, with Susie eventually leaving Omaha to pursue her own thing, it reminds us that even brilliant minds grapple with the same complexities of relationships that we all do. There's no easy answer to balancing ambition, family, finding fulfillment. It's a lifelong puzzle.
It definitely humanizes him. Shows us that even someone like Warren Buffett faces the same challenges, the same struggles as everyone else. Now, as we move into the 1970s, there's a fascinating turn in his career. He seems drawn more and more to the world of media.
Yeah, and this is where Katharine Graham enters the picture. She was the publisher of the Washington Post. That pairing, a Midwestern investor and a powerful East Coast media figure, it's a fascinating dynamic.
I can only imagine the conversations. But beyond the social aspect, his investment in the Washington Post, it speaks to his growing understanding of the power of information, right?
Right.
How media shapes public opinion, controls the narrative.
It was a strategic move, but it also aligned perfectly with his values. Buffett believed strongly in a free press and holding those in power accountable.
So a capitalist with a conscience, huh? As the decades go by, Buffett keeps making these bold moves, growing his empire, tackling new challenges. But he always stays true to those core principles: patience, discipline, and that laser focus on value.
He operated like a chess grandmaster, always thinking several moves ahead, anticipating those market shifts, positioning himself for success over the long haul. But even the best players hit unexpected obstacles. For Buffett, the 1990s threw a curveball: the rise of the tech industry.
The dot-com bubble. Everyone was going crazy for tech stocks, but Buffett stayed famously skeptical. He just didn't buy into a lot of those high-flying companies, didn't see the long-term value. Why do you think he stayed away?
It's amazing, that discipline. He stuck to his guns, didn't get swept up in the hype. A lot of people questioned him at the time, said he was out of touch, too old-fashioned, but history proved him right.
Sometimes the smartest investment is the one you don't make right. And as that tech bubble inflated and eventually burst, another massive event shakes the world. 9/11. How did that tragedy impact Buffett, both personally and professionally?
Like everyone else, he was deeply affected by that day. On a human level, of course. But professionally, 9/11 brought a unique set of challenges and opportunities.
It was a time when so many people were just frozen, by fear and uncertainty.
Yeah.
But Buffett seemed to stay calm. Why do you think that was?
His steady hand at the helm of Berkshire Hathaway, it was vital calm, focused, reassuring investors. No panic, no rash moves.
So in a moment when the world felt totally chaotic, he was this anchor of stability. It cemented his reputation, not just as a brilliant investor, but as a leader. Then as we head into the 21st century, a new challenge pops up. The rise of these super complex financial instruments, derivatives especially.
And here's where things get a little trickier. Buffett was always wary of derivatives, saw them as potentially dangerous, opaque. He even called them financial weapons of mass destruction. Right?
Those are strong words. But then, kind of shockingly, he starts dipping his toes into derivatives himself through Berkshire Hathaway's reinsurance business. What was that about? Was he going against his own principles?
It's nuanced, like a lot of things with Buffett. He still believed derivatives were risky in the wrong hands, absolutely. But he also saw a way to use them strategically, in a controlled way, to generate profit for Berkshire Hathaway.
So a calculated risk, made very carefully,
Mm-hmm.
it really highlights how much the financial world was changing, the complexity he had to navigate.
And that complexity just kept growing, especially leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, a crisis that would test even the most experienced investors, including, of course, Warren Buffett.
Man, 2008, what a time, right? Felt like the whole world economy was about to go poof. And right in the thick of it, Warren Buffett's making some big moves, but he's not running for the hills like so many others were.
Nope, not at all. Tons of investors were scrambling to sell anything to get out of the market fast. Buffett, he's buying.
Yeah.
Sees opportunity where everyone else just sees panic. It's remarkable.
Like, he's got a totally different playbook. Not following the crowd, he's going the opposite way.
Yeah.
And these weren't small potatoes either, right? Billions going into companies like Goldman Sachs, General Electric, basically giving them a vote of confidence when they needed it most.
You got it. And that's the power of Buffett's reputation. Those investments, they were more than just money. They were a signal to the whole market. When he's saying, hey, these companies are worth saving. There's value here, even now, even when things look bleak.
Putting his money where his mouth is in a big, big way. It's a good reminder that sometimes the best chances come when things are at their worst, you know?
Absolutely.
But beyond just the impact of those investments, there's something deeper about how Buffett handles risk. Clearly, he's not afraid of it, but it's calculated, focused on companies he understands, strong fundamentals, even when the market's totally undervaluing them.
He's a master at that risk-reward balance, understands that fear can drive prices down way too far, makes things irrational, and that creates openings for those with the guts and the cash to jump in. Buffett had both in spades.
The ultimate contrarian, right? Swimming against the current. Shows how, thinking long-term, you can not just survive a crisis, but actually come out ahead. But while he's navigating all this financial chaos, there's something major happening in his personal life, too. Susie passes away.
A huge loss, no doubt. Susie had been his partner, his confidant for decades. After a long illness, her death leaves a gap that nothing could really fill. Shows that even someone at the top, like Buffett, they're still human, you know? Grief hits everyone.
Brings that human element back into focus, right?
Yeah.
Behind the billions, the deals, there's a person going through the whole range of human emotions. But even with that loss, Buffett kept working, kept Berkshire Hathaway going strong, kept engaging with the world. And after Susie's gone, his philanthropy seems to become even more important.
Right, and that's where his connection with Bill and Melinda Gates comes in. They shared that commitment to using wealth to solve problems globally, things like poverty, healthcare. Powerful team up, right? Resources, brains, influence, all aimed at these huge issues facing the world.
Shows how much he believed in using wealth to make a real difference, lasting change. Not just building a legacy for himself, but lifting others up.
Exactly. And that's what makes Warren Buffett so compelling. He's got all these layers, this mix of brilliance and contradictions. Top-tier investor, savvy businessman, but also this incredibly generous philanthropist, truly cares about humanity.
Proves that success doesn't have just one definition, you know? It's not just the money, but the impact you make, the good you put out in the world. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Warren Buffett, what sticks with you? What really resonates?
Right.
Maybe it's that long-term thinking, his incredible discipline, or just his dedication to always keep learning. How can you take those lessons, apply them to your own life?
Yeah.
Whether it's investing, business, or just navigating this crazy world that's worth thinking about.
Couldn't have said it better myself.